I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. It is Monday, December 15th. We survived the first big snowstorm of the season. Andrew Clough, are you hunkered down in your igloo with your igloo brothers?
It is colder than a wing for the Charlotte Hornets, man. Than a witch's knipple. Let me tell you that, man. I walked my kid to school today, and I was like, damn, that rookie of the year is beating us down, man. It's cold in New York City.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that, and you brought it home perfectly, as I suspected you would.
Whenever you're in doubt, always remember that I'll bring up one of my guys in a pinch.
If this podcast seems strangely personalized to you, the listener's interests, is because this is the new version of Cookies Hoops. Previously, you were listening to the meandering thoughts of myself and Andrew, but now it is being digitally catered to your own whims. Whatever you like is what Cookies Hoops will talk about. If you are a fan of the Knicks, or perhaps a fan of the Little Green Hand, this podcast is now perfectly catered to your interests.
Man, I was watching top 10 and bottom 10 neighborhoods in New York City YouTube, and they were like, oh, yeah, Upper East Side, sprawling, beautiful, good schools. And then The Voice, I was like, is this a person or a bot? And then they were like, worst neighborhood, Bed-Stuy. And I'm like, yes, let's go. Have the robot say Kazutsko for once. You're talking about a Washington Post article that is stating that ran data through an AI filter, I believe, and said the majority of podcasts don't fulfill the requirement to be considered journalistic. And that means they don't introduce topics, they don't support ideas with facts, and they don't conclude in a kind of traditional way in terms of reporting things that happen in real life.
Right. It says that more than 2/3 of scripts generated by the feature dubbed Your Personal Podcast failed a metric intended to determine whether they met the publication standards, according to a readout of the test shared for Semaphore. As someone who has very high podcast standards, when the interns are churning out the content that has now been turned into AI drivel, I'm outraged by that number.
Are you outraged and in a predictable podcast outrage way? Or are you outraged at the outrage?
Testers were asked to rate the quality of scripts on a pass-fail basis in order to give us the most comprehensive list of issues to examine. I can't really tell. Okay. Minor pronunciation issues. I do that all the time. Misattributed or fabricated quotes. You do that constantly. The tool also sometimes inserts commentary by interpreting a source's quotes as the paper's position on an issue. We would never do that.
Sounds like a Yelp-ass comment thought. It's like, they're not saying AJ Wilson right.
This idea, though, that a podcast would be personally generated for your interests, do we like that or not?
I love it. You mean, is it good to have specialized content?
Well, I'm wondering if this creates the natural echo chamber where if you're listening to a podcast on a topic that's from the Wall Street Journal or Washington Post or New York Times or whoever, you're being introduced to information that you would not have always previously sought out. Maybe new information, maybe something outside of your own realm of expertise.
director's commentary was a nice feature for DVDs for a while, but it would totally be based on how interesting the director was, if they were drunk, if they wanted to do it, if they had actual things to say about the movie you had just watched that you're rewatching again in real time with another voice in your head. Mystery Science Theater. It's easy to kind of talk about misinformation as a bad thing. It is bad, but it's not like I need to listen to the podcast of Succession after I watch the show. I kind of want impressions. This is going to be, I always think like our shows are about certain themes. This time, I'm just talking about impression, man, because if we want to talk about facts, how many facts do we need? And especially in a predatory field of factual reporting, where you just, someone says something, you take it. It's like, I said it. It's like, well, did you credit the source? It's like, doesn't matter. It's in the wild now. It's multiplying like capillaries. And whoever turns into an artery gets to hold on to that without any sort of provenance or credit. I think this is the food is terrible and the portions are too small.
Yeah, I think the idea that we need everything to be personalized, edited for our interest by computerized systems, because you look at this, you're like, well, eventually they'll figure that out, right? Okay, this issue for now with pronunciation, fabricated quotes, that is a problem right now, and it doesn't fit whatever journalistic standards because it still has your name on it, and it sounds stupid. It's making stuff up, and it doesn't resemble a human necessarily.
Yep.
Yeah, you're like, okay, we're just putting out this uncanny valley AI slop, and we're getting called out on it. And you could presume that in the future, whether it's in 2 years or 10 years, whatever that may be, they will iron out these kind of kinks. And I'm not shaming, but the thing here is that we know that every pod will go down the line and become that, right? It's like, is that just the inevitable course of action, that Cookies Hoops at some point will be me and you digitally reconfigured to let a Kings fan get only Zach LaVine content?
Conservatives say a lot of things, and I think capitalism also is complex, obviously. But in terms of content, it kind of ends up in a place that conservatives may not love. And I think you're talking about that. If the response and audience for information or misinformation evolves and kind of selects itself, we all get the same story in the end, in theory, right? Every newspaper story, however strong or weak, turns into a vulture, meaning the optimal bird. We've talked about this before. If every bird evolved through a million years, it would end up as a vulture because it is the most efficient version of that species. And to various ends within a lifetime, I think we see that and we don't see that. The introduction of technology like the internet kind of accelerate and delay those two things in parallel. To write about it is its own misinformation and content generation. But there is an interesting point there. I don't know what we want. Do we want the New York Times to have the final say?
Well, I mean, no, because
That's what I mean, right? What do we want?
Right. I mean, also, regardless of whatever your political inclination is,
New York Times. It does. I'm not talking about them specifically.
No, I know. I'm right. I'm countering to your point here, and I'm in agreement with you. Is that regardless of where you lie on the political spectrum, there only being a few sources for information is clearly not a good thing, because those are companies that are owned by powerful entities, and the larger they become and the more they glom up market share, the more likely they are to be compromised by money or government or whatever it's going to be. And if that affects the content, which it inevitably will do, then it's only serving the benefits of the ownership class or the corporate class or the billionaire class. And their politics may be Palantir, their politics may be Soros. I just mean wherever that lies, that's not necessarily helpful. Like, we're not talking about the Medicis here.
Well, the New Yorker 100 documentary just came out on Netflix, and in it, there's a small snippet of Tina Brown leaving the publication after Cy Newhouse bounces her, and her globbing on to Harvey Weinstein to start Talk Magazine. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And it was like, we're going to offer a new voice, a more contemporary voice to the old stodgy New Yorker, which I was a part of, and I got pushed out because I wanted to be fresh. So this is my fresh idea. Fast forward, she's in the documentary being like, that was maybe one of the worst decisions of my life. And I didn't know it at the time. And I don't know if that's because of revisionist Weinstein history or the fact that Talk wasn't good, right? And it didn't fulfill the promise of the potential of Tina Brown as like a media mogul and one of one, where Remnick steps in, is like, who is this guy? He's still there. And he is not the establishment, but through checks and balances of consumerism, money, political waves, the New Yorker is still standing. And the story of the New Yorker, as much as a player like LeBron James, is like, we have to talk about his longevity as a thing.
Yeah, and also, I mean, look at your girl Hillary, going up on stage, like, hey, it's the information that's the problem here. The kids are getting on this TikTok. We gotta cut down on that. We can't allow them just to be seeing things all willy-nilly. We need to control what people see. You're like, well, right. This goes back to the New York Times and CBS and NBC and ABC being kind of appendages of the state in various ways, or of capitalistic interests. And we're at a schism point where you see the US government, you see Hillary Clinton, you see powerful people saying, oh, we've got to wrangle this back under control because we need Larry Ellison running all this stuff. We need the people from Oracle to take over TikTok. We need to grab control of the messaging. And it doesn't really even matter whether you're on the left or the right again. It's just funneling back into the same place where our media is currently owned. So I don't know where it goes, because it's clear that the group of people who have the current media, which is the Larry Ellison crew, or the people that Hillary Clinton, is supportive of, that they are going to try to bring this back like under their thumb.
Yeah, and everyone has a number, and there's so much top heavy wealth that the number gets hit over and over. Barry Weiss had a number, CBS hit it. And I was like, let's see what she does. It's terrible. Like, already it's clear she doesn't know what she's doing. I have a relative who was formerly obsessed with Newsmax, lost favor of Newsmax because things cycle through, and now is really into like the Epoch Times or something. And I went investigating this news source. It is horseshit. It is super bad. And accuracy is not even a part of the equation anymore. It is about predatory manipulation in terms of gathering money for themselves in the fast sense, and in the slow sense, money for themselves in an election of 10 years down the line. And that's why I always say, like, Trump is not a part of the MAGA movement, or Trumpism is not about Trump, because it was set in motion before he came into the forefront. But like, the Hillary Clintons don't matter here, right? They don't have the power anymore, and she knows it. Also, I don't think about Hillary Clinton anymore. But like, it's interesting to think about what Condé Nast is doing, where the money is, because it's not a question of there not being money. It's a question of who is willing to spend it. This is not a Dodgers conversation. This is a media conversation.
Right. I feel like there's this intersection of, it's not necessarily art and commerce in here, but of perspective and commerce, where I think my previous suspicion was that everything was based on money. It was just solely money based. These companies are going to devour each other and get stronger and take over larger and larger swaths of the media territory just in order to empower themselves and become wealthier, and that was it. And now I think it's become apparent that it's also the messaging that goes along with that there are two prongs to this, where the ability to monopolize the market from a financial standpoint makes tons of sense and is very logical, but it's also in order to monopolize the opinions that are expressed on platforms in America. I mean, that's why Barry is there. That's why she got brought in. She certainly didn't have a fresh perspective. She certainly wasn't doing great work. She was brought in to monopolize a perspective.
Man, I love YouTube. I think it is the most interesting media source I consume personally. And I have a lot of I'm fans of all these personal blog sites, right? Like that'll be like, one of which, Eric Conover is going to jail. You know about this dude, Eric Conover? This real estate dude?
No. Who is this guy?
Ryan Serhant adjacent. We're talking millions of followers, where he's just like, would you live in the smallest townhouse in the West Village? It's like, I can't even fit in here. Love it. Love all that stuff. And he was chased by a police car speeding, led them down like a slow O.J. Simpson style chase, crashed into another police car, hit a police officer, and continued on. He claims he was having a manic episode, and he was like, apparently when he was stopped, he was like, I'm famous, I was just trying to get away. And they're like, who are you again? He's like, oh, I have 1 million followers on YouTube. It's like, you and everyone else, buddy. And he's going to jail now, like 4 to 10, which is crazy, because he used to just post about, this is the most luxury building and billionaires row, and people like me would watch. But anyway, back to the content thing, crazy.
I'm a basketball podcaster. I had to run.
It's crazy. He was like, I'm famous. And I'm like, to be fair, he is famous, but a lot of the people I've kind of started following during the pandemic and stuck with, the content's different now, right? It used to be like Babish went through this. It used to be, this is what I'm interested in. This is my world. Come walk with me. Now it's just like, from our sponsors, here's an ad from DraftKings. Here's an ad from Mizzen. Here's an ad from Hexclad. And a lot of my favorite content people, to no fault of theirs, are like, we quit our jobs. We're doing this full time. Here's 4 ads. And you can fast forward through them. But it's changing their content too. In the way I always say, you don't know your blood was replaced in your sleep, and you feel the same, but your blood type is different, and you have no way of knowing. People take fewer risks, perhaps, if I want to be anecdotally presumptuous. It's less personal because they're trying to protect money and ads and a life, and a good life, just paying the bills. I get it, but it is a streamlining of thinking that I think is not good, but also it is a trap that was set by other people years ago.
Well, yeah, it's like you look at the reason that major media companies are generally conservative in their approach. The ones that were driven by advertising revenue. Well, we don't want to run that. That could go afoul of our conservative base. We don't want to use that actor or that celebrity because they're conservative or they're too far left, and that could alienate someone who's in our audience.
Do not make fun of the Bing Bongers. We do not want to lose that audience. The Bing Bongs forever.
play it safe.
Yeah.
And it's like the same principles even apply more so in some ways to a Babish or whatever, right? If you are a fringe character who has made your money off of being Candace Owens or New York Knickerbockers Fuentes, you've already carved out your lane. You're not going to lose people from that lane. You're just going to keep moving further and further to the right. You're going to double down because you need to stake out more terrain, being way right of center. But if you're someone who's doing a cooking show, I can't offend people, man. I'm just here to show you how to make a garbage plate.
And as soon as you're Babish, who has power and fucking money, like you watch him change studios, being like, I bought this whole townhouse. Thank you guys. Let me give you a tour. And you're like, what the fuck? This comes from this processes of his show that we thought was personal. And our buddies are going through this, like with hit stuff like Perfectly Imperfect. Like shout out to those guys. I love what they do. Subway takes, like at some point the stakes get high. And I think I always ask what someone wants. Like when Cameron Winter becomes the most important thing on a slice of culture's minds, what does he want? It's like, well, Paul Thomas Anderson wants to shoot you playing the piano on stage. Do you say no or yes? It's like, oh, a Safdie brother will be joining him. I don't know what I would do in that situation, but Cameron Winter said yes. People are reselling those tickets for $3,000. Be like, fuck it, let's do it. I might do it. But do you see where I'm going with this? Like, are we cannibalizing ourselves a little bit with the speed in which this happens?
Well, we've bemoaned this before, or at least discussed it. I don't think we have hard and fast rules on the topic of selling out. But if we're talking the bane of Gen X dumb is
wow, that was crazy. Yeah,
Gen X dumb is being horrified by the idea of selling out, and I think that is very foreign to today's climate, with a few exceptions. There are still some people that, all right, that may be a bridge too far. But overall,
Cindy Lee, yeah,
there is an
album of the
expectation.
year. Yeah, won't go on iTunes, won't go on Spotify.
Oh, you've got 2 million followers with your cooking show? Well, then of course you're going to get ads, and of course you are going to now fall off or be compromised, because that's the deal. We understand that's the rules.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like I was thinking about Pluribus, right? It's like Vince Gilligan, I think Breaking Bad, in my opinion, is really good. But people made something out of that wasn't. And I think it's for action fans, for WWF fans, like drugs, killing, all this stuff. Clearly a great show. In that success, he makes Better Call Saul, which he speaks. He's Cameron Winter. He's like, I'm speaking to critics now. I'm trying to legitimize my legacy as a complex storyteller with these complex people in this story. One of the best things I've ever seen in my life, Better Call Saul. Very deeply, deeply American. And then after that, he's just like, I've kind of done both ends of this. I've done WWF and I've done Geese. What's left? And Apple, with all the money in the world, being like, you can spend anything you want on this. What do you want to do? Success is not important to us. Your name is important because you've made these two things. And he's like, what if I want to meditate on my death? Really slow. No one's going to really like this. There's ideas about Trump in there. There's ideas about AI. There's ideas about wandering in there. But really, this is about me confronting my mortality. Would you do that? And Apple's like, who the fuck cares? Do it. And we get this weird artwork that would never existed without his previous two shows. Better Call Saul doesn't exist without Breaking Bad, which was like an easy show to love. And I think it's interesting. Pluribus is not as good as the other shows, but it's definitely the most personal with that blank check.
Yeah, the the Medicis are back, and they're giving Vince Gilligan a show.
We're talking
But I think,
thousands of years of tradition.
yeah, I think Breaking Bad is one of those shows that has this ebb and flow with whether or not it was cringe. At the time,
Yeah,
I, I,
yeah.
I enjoyed it. I watched it. A few years later, it just seemed dumb and goofy and almost embarrassing.
Listen, I am the danger.
And then now I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of into it again. Fuck it.
It's great. It's weird. It looks like Married with Children visually, and it has great characters. I mean, fucking Better Call Saul. I told somebody who had binged Pluribus, like, what's up with this? Why am I watching this thing that's kind of fine? But what's all the chatter about? I'm like, Better Call Saul was like weird Tennessee Williams richness of like American bullshit, Dennis Johnson, whatever you want to talk about, was there in a way that wasn't overly sophisticated, entertaining. It just hit all the notes. That show is just jaw dropping.
I watched maybe the first season and a half. I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it.
Yeah, yeah.
But that wasn't a commentary on whether it was good or not. I'm just like,
Whatever. I mean,
um,
no,
but
yeah,
Pluribus,
go ahead.
I don't think it's too heady for me. Pause. I think that it's maybe a little too slow, or I'm just not that entranced by the main character or generally any of the characters, which seems to be part of the point. You know, Vince Gilligan is a extremely cerebral guy who knows what he's doing, and when he makes a show with a female lead that is unlikable, there is something in there where he's kind of pointing the finger at everyone who thought Walter White was cool as hell and was the good guy in that show. Like he acts with intentionality, and I think that was what was great about Breaking Bad, was that the main point was everything goes wrong. So when he ends the show with what I viewed as a very clearly fake ending that pleases the entire audience, I'm like, this guy is craftier than everyone's giving him credit for, and obviously he's a brilliant dude. So this show is, I wanted to like it. I was excited to watch it, and it just didn't quite hit.
Yeah, I think the connecting thought for me personally between the three shows is the afterlife. I think I don't think
Surprise, surprise. Andrew thinks the theme of the show is wandering the afterlife.
he picks the Southwest as a location, as his favorite location, because it has a loaded history in America, of where people are allowed to dwell, live, wander, make mistakes, be happy, whatever. Whose land does this belong to? And with Breaking Bad, I think he was very interested in the idea of um, what it takes to be happy forever and what eternity is. I mean, of course, it's the afterlife. The main character is dying. Like, he just tells you straight up, this is about death. And then Better Call Saul is a continuation of that, but it's about judgment. It's about what do you deserve? What have you done? And who gets to decide? Incredible. And then Pluribus, same thing. The main character is upset, which is a deeply Gen X thought, right? Like, there is a Gen X brain writing this. Unlikable. Characters are unlikable on purpose. And the last episode kind of ticked up for me a little bit. Spoilers. She hugs somebody at the end, which I felt was like a huge turning point in the story. She kind of changes. You're waiting for someone to change. To your point, it takes too long for her to change. It should have happened in episode 3, but it finally happened. As I was watching, I was like, what would solve all of this if one of the loves of her life came back as a robot, being like, "Hi, I'm back," and she's like, "But I love you, but you're not the same," or her to fall in love with somebody who hadn't changed. She has to show something. And finally she did. She hugs one of the robots. Spoiler. Um, so I think I have hope. But to your point, the intentionality of this writer has to be noted because he doesn't do anything without purpose.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at Breaking Bad, where from the jump there were clues to how this was going to get resolved, or how Walter White's identity was going to be found, and he waited to spring those year after year after year to like, here's the Walt Whitman Blades of Grass. It's like, this was set in motion so long ago. The guy's, as you said, just very intentional.
Yeah.
He's not out there making mistakes. Like, he's not fumbling around and figuring out how this is going to end on the fly. He already knows, which is interesting though with Pluribus, because I would presume that the idea of it getting picked up for further seasons is part of the plan, but it's also a show that, and again, I have not watched the last couple episodes, that promises a resolution.
No, it's going to be annoying. It's going to drift off in the Gen X style to a Tom Waits song, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? Is that it? Like, up the hill, and like, that's it? That's the whole thing? Welcome to art in the 90s, right? But you know, I think about what a lot of artists say as they get older, as annoying as Bob Dylan and Zadie Smith are and everything. They're like, we're not supposed to recognize the artists of who made the things in our youth, right? Like, if I could relate to the writer of White Teeth, then I have not grown. That person is a stranger to me. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that now because I'm just not that person. And Breaking Bad was like 20 years ago. Vince Gilligan is no longer the same person.
Well, speaking of this era, there was a post about how, the culture of the 90s was unrivaled. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, people would have said the same thing about the 80s in the past, or the 70s or the 60s before that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Sure. It's unrivaled, just like the 30s. The flappers were so goated.
The Medicis, goated.
The Medicis woaded or goated?
Yeah.
But anyway, this is the time for the 90s, which also is like I thought we'd get back to the 2010s, but anyway, they're saying the culture was unrivaled, unmatched. And then someone countered.
Can you mention?
This was on Twitter. The original tweet was someone saying American culture in the 90s was unmatched. It had like 7,000 likes, barely viral. Then the response to it says, a common theme in mass media during this time was that life was so unbearably boring and bland, too much alliteration for me, that there was this unbearable, Jesus Christ, existential angst.
Your favorite player of all time is God Sham God. You're mad at alliteration all of a sudden?
Woaded or goaded? Alliteration. And then it would be better to annihilate everything that exists than continue. And it shows screenshots from 4 films and television shows, which are American Beauty, Fight Club, The Sopranos, and Office Space. All of which I don't really view as being from the 90s. They were all from 1999. They may be a product of the 90s, but they are more formidable as totems of the early 2000s, in my opinion. But still,
that's fair. That's fair. I mean, those are pre Y2K and post Y2K valid. Which brings up like an interesting thought. Like, man, people are coming after Tarantino and being like, Tarantino comes out and says like, Paul Dano is the worst actor. He ruined one of possibly the greatest movies ever, and There Will Be Blood. And I don't think he did. I think he's a good actor. I don't care. But people really went after him. And I was like, did Paul Dano say something about politics that Tarantino didn't especially enjoy? And now the response on my Twitter feed is like, wait, Tarantino was a bad director. I'm like, no, he was an amazing director that you may not like personally. We got to separate the two if we can, because artists are not politicians. Not all artwork is political. Back to this point. While some of it may be, Office Space might have been more personal than political, right? Mike Judge, ooh, what an
Well,
artist.
also,
Crazy.
right, the Tarantino stuff. He's always been annoying. Why are we
Always.
pretending we're just discovering that Tarantino is weird and pervy and offensive and uses the N-word and like licks actresses' feet? This is his deal. He's always been annoying. If you were really into Tarantino, the person, this whole time, and are now having your come to Jesus moment because you're a Paul Dano defender, you have not been locked in. You
But
might
it's
be loaded.
disingenuous. It's just a take, right? Being like, hey, I think Pulp Fiction sucks. I'm like, that's valid. I don't think you watched it, because anyone who watches that wouldn't say it sucks. But okay, now with the politics, you talk about the GIMP scene, how that was like miswritten and it doesn't age well. For sure, I get it. But like, not a bad movie ever. And it it's interesting how Gen X. I always think of the skip pass. You know, when a baller, Jokic, throws the ball across court and gets an open look for a shooter, and Gen X, to their own maybe creation, but maybe via circumstance, is always getting skipped in politics, in culture, voices, all that. We are tired. I love these artists. I've been thinking so much about Zadie Smith recently, but like, she's writing about getting older and how she feels about something I've felt for a while, which is like, we talk about neighbors in terms of proximity, but neighbors in terms of age is something that I don't think is discussed much. You know, like people who have grown up seeing the same things I have feel like neighbors to me. It feels like they live next door. Um, we want to talk about like Mamdami shit, but like it, artwork has been skipped, and the new Whitney Biennial list dropped today, and it is intimidating how good this list is. These artists are third generation identity politics people that nailed it, right? It's not annoying, it's complex, it's nuanced, it's gorgeous, it is professionally ready, it is supported with words that expand the artwork. I'm like, fuck, these artists are good. I am unserious. Here I am thinking about Frank Ntilikina. Why is that painting blue? It's like, well, Frank Ntilikina's home jersey was blue. Um, I am an impressionist, right? I think about Mark Rothko. This is why I kind of have grown to love Geese. That album is a Zoomer anthem or document, but he doesn't really think about anything. We can't tell what he thinks about. He strings together these words like poetry that don't even make sense. And I'm like, oh, he's singing about a feeling. He's got a complicated feeling. His mother wrote a book that's very complex in terms of emotion, but he is crazy with this feeling that he needs to tell you, but you can't tell what he thinks about anything. And I think there's a tension there, but Gen X is lost in all this sauce because we don't have the energy anymore.
Yeah, the as I said, I really did like Cameron Winter's solo album better than Geese. That's not saying it's better. I just
Sure.
enjoyed it a lot. And
But you know what I
Geese
mean?
thought
His
was
lyrics
cool.
are like, I see you on that red boat. I love it. And you're like, what is he talking about? I have no idea.
Oh, I agree. When he's on that song "Drinking Age," which is great. It's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
turn 21 and become an alcoholic. Finally, my destiny is fulfilled. I'm going to be a bar fly. And he's like, bag of rubber bands. I'm like, oh yeah, classic. The bar fly with his bag of rubber bands. Everyone knows that.
It's a rubber band man, T.I. What's happening? Balding.
Bands.
But right, but it's enough because his delivery is beautiful. His packaging works. He looks the part. The critics like it. it becomes impressionistic. It becomes like Rothko wasn't good only because he had one feeling. He was good because he was a good painter and he was well loved by his peers. Huge stuff to be able to package with kind of like a loose premise of like, hey, Apple, I want to write a show about the afterlife. It's like, cool. Are you Vince Gilligan?
I want to go back to that idea, though, of 1999 ennui, this
Yeah, sorry.
concept that,
Yeah.
no, it was a perfect segue. It was a
Oh, thanks.
perfect
Ooh,
sidebar.
I
No,
was
no
worried.
worries there.
Yeah.
But this idea that, again, we're talking Gen X ideas here, that life with a picket fence, with IKEA furniture, with an office job, with a paycheck, with health insurance, presumably,
With the
all
killer
these,
apartment 20 feet from the farmer's market.
all of these accoutrements. This is how you know this is an AI pod and not just me working this out on the fly. Of sort of yuppiedom from
Yuppie
that
adjacent stuff.
era,
Yeah.
yuppie adjacent stuff, right, was hollow, and that it was so soulless that you would say, you know what, Andrew, let's punch each other in the face. Let's stomp on this fax machine because these geese in my pond, they're the ones who get it.
Mhm. The 90s angst was erased by technology. But artists who made stuff then were onto something, right? I think it's easy to look back and say, like, you guys had it so good, we can't even get jobs, you know? And I think the misreading of that is like young people are always lazy. In the 90s, young people were not lazy. They were angry. They were coming out of a generation of trickle down economics that never trickled down to them. They were coming down from a cultural domination by people who let them down. The flower children let us all down. They turned into world eaters and they took rights away from young people in the 90s and they took money and opportunity away from young people in the 90s. So you sit in your office cubicle, which was the origin of optimization, and all of a sudden a young person is like, I feel like I'm doomed here. This is a coffin, right? And Mike Judge, who was like the best artist, is just like, how many times can I tell you we're dying a slow death? We may live to 80, but you don't know you're already dead. Sorry for the motif, my favorite motif, right? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think on one hand, someone like Mike Judge is brilliant and creative and smart in many ways, living his dream, but can still empathize with people who were stuck in 9 to 5 jobs and was able to speak to them in office space in a way that clearly resonated and made that a classic movie for everyone who, well, basically for everyone, but for people who were in those kind of crappy office jobs, like open floor plan, cubicles. Ugh, this
A
stinks.
lot of heavy lifting by a rap song too. Let's be honest. Like people love Office Space because of a rap song.
Also true, because
Yeah.
the main plot of stealing pennies on transactions is really incidental.
It's great. It's great. Yeah.
Fantastic movie. All
Yeah.
those are seminal works of art. I was also thinking, though, that these are the thoughts of creative people about jobs they don't want to have. And there is empathy, but it's not sympathy. It's not, I'm going through this the same as you.
Yeah.
They may experience some of it, but this is like someone who has an amazing job, a creative job, saying, man, your life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those people don't hate it so much. Maybe they're more worried about paying the mortgage. Maybe they're more worried about the price of groceries. They're more worried about tangible things than having an existential crisis like Kevin Spacey when he's back from Epstein's Island and now he's just sitting around looking at red balloons.
Waiting for Tarantino to hire him. Um, It's like Varsity Blues is evergreen. I don't want your life. And I think that should be an initial reaction every young person has. It's required. You should hate the artist before you. You should hate the businessmen before you. You should hate the podcasters and basketball players before you. It's required, I think. And then as you get older, you start edging into power and money, and then your world opens. You're like, I'm not as mad as I used to be, and you make different things. You make pluribus. But anger is important for evolution, and I think '90s anger was, not to be subjective, but like really good. I thought that was a good unrest to have. And when I say technology reset it, it's like we had to relearn these dumb things again, like commerce and capitalism. It's just like, oh, we're thinking about like delivery systems as $1 billion ideas. Like we lost a plot of depression. We lost a plot of systemic obsolescence. These were good ideas. Um, I don't know if we ever came back to it. As I'm looking at this Whitney biennial statement, I'm like, we're not talking about Gen X stuff. We're talking about the third or fourth iteration, quick iteration of identity politics. We're not talking about the greater suffering. We're almost talking about fuck you, pay me, which is powerful.
Well, think of Ice Cube, right? I mean, this is someone who embodied that fury and that rage of the underclass against systemic racism, against the boomers, against the cops, NWA, fuck the
Solo career,
police.
crazy
You know,
solo career, Ice Cube.
his early solo records were, very
Unbelievable.
mean-spirited songs about white women, about Uncle Sam, which was a stand-in for white men, about Korean shop owners. The guy was full of rage at society.
Nobody beats the Wiz wouldn't carry it.
The man, he was on it. At his
Right.
former group, at Jerry Heller. Like he was just a cauldron of venom for several albums, and then you chill out. You got rich. Like, wait a
He
minute.
hit the number. He hit the number. And when we talk about '90s ennui, this is a white thing, right? Like this office job. I don't want the house. I don't want the 2 kids. I don't want the car, the dog. This is white, which is a wonderful source of storytelling. But when you bring up like Ice Cube, and when you bring up the Lynch Mob, and when you bring up Ice-T, Body Count, like they are the genesis of like the Flower Children let us down. We were left behind. The policies in place by the Flower Children are hurting us, and there's no end to this. We're kind of super mad, or we're on a Law and Order as the detective for like 2 decades, right?
Right. I mean, honestly, yeah, a very interesting, I guess what you call it, a path from,
Trajectory.
like Black Panthers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if we're just going to talk about the Gen X rap world, there was a direct connection between that kind of activism and that kind of radical thought that went into, I don't know, X Clan or something like that, or Public Enemy. Like that was a genre within itself. And Ice Cube stepped and dabbled into that, but he was more like Nation of Islam, and he had his role. But it did go down directly from like radicalism from the 60s, from the 70s. And this is not bemoaning the lack or of it today, whatever. It's not the point. But Cube at some point said, okay, cool. I really liked thinking about Huey Newton. I really liked thinking about Aldrich Cleaver. I really like making movies. I really like being insanely wealthy. I think I want to start a 3-on-3 basketball league.
Respect to Ice Cube. I think I would have done the same thing. It hit his number. I have a number. Whatever. Ice Cube is good for humanity. I don't know.
Well,
We have the big three. Cool.
I'm saying that the person that Ice Cube was when he recorded Kill at Will and America's Most Wanted is not the same person that was making like rom-coms.
Yeah.
15, 20 years later. That's a 22-year-old versus a 37-year-old or whatever it would be.
I want to resist opposite day, like war is not peace, poverty is not goodness, being wealthy is not badness. A lot of times it is, a lot of times it isn't. But I kind of, not to dwell on the 90s, but this is the 90s segment. I always think about Judgment Night, that soundtrack, people love it. It's a weird juxtaposition between rappers, some hardcore rappers, and like bands like Teenage Fan Club, Sonic Youth, the whole alternative wave. It was blazing. And I think, a part of me looks back at it being like, this is so surreal. How can I forget it? And another part of me looks at it and be like, oh, the tension here is so interesting, right? Because the unrest is coming from two different places. The hardcore rap unrest is like, the movie is about a bunch of white people like lost in a dangerous neighborhood. Judgment Night overnight, as if their lives were a danger at 3:30 a.m. Maybe they were in the movie. It's a good premise. They're already
Biohazard, lost in the hood, confronted by Onyx.
But like, it is, on one hand, half of the collaboration is coming from a place of like, the danger you speak of is not the danger I inhabit. These neighborhoods are where I live. The policies are the danger. And then the other half is like, oh, the danger is that we're going to lose the power, that things are going to get better for you to marginalize what we have. And we have nothing against you, but we also don't want to give up what we have. Like, it's a really interesting, simple idea, but interesting kind of revisionist history.
Well, right. You see echoes in this. It's like a very common premise for film. You, a Westerner, probably white, is suddenly somehow in an environment where all these other people who are non-white live. Can you survive?
A stranger comes to town on a horse.
Well, they're certainly going to want to hurt you if you go there because you're white. So, you showed up here in Mogadishu. Well, good luck. Here comes an action movie. You just trying to save your white ass.
I don't know. If I ever make it to the Middle East, I'm going to be like, just hope I'm not in Black Hawk Down. Is this Black Hawk Down I'm in? But,
if you go to the Middle East, you're certain to be beheaded. It's like, hey man, I don't know. I see on reels people just hanging out in Afghanistan, riding around with the Taliban. And it seems like they're pretty safe.
And there's dangerous neighborhoods for sure. There's blocks you don't walk on in Weeksville at like 5 a.m. The chances of people being concerned with you is very small. But, like artwork about being in a place of danger is amazing, right? Whether that be the jungle, the actual like Amazon jungle, or a hurricane, or a neighborhood. And the neighborhood has more juice to it because it speaks of a lot of good and bad that we've created. But the idea of the stranger comes to town is interesting in that soundtrack because Sonic Youth wrote Cool Thing, which was kind of like hard to listen to at the time and now. And then it kind of felt like Teenage Fan Club was like, oh, we're down. De La Soul is accepting us as like, cool. We dominate the charts. Not Teenage Fan Club, literally. But like, we are looking for this cool. And the movie itself doesn't really reflect that in the soundtrack.
No, not at all. I think the De La song with Teenage Fan Club is the best record on the album. But
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I haven't revisited it, but that was the standout to me at the time.
It's I think the most streamed track on that album because it's great. It's a great, beautiful song.
Great record, yes.
Yeah.
Well, talking 90s, we'd be remiss not to talk about the tragic death of Rob Reiner, who is woaded, just kidding, goated. When it came to that run that includes I'm gonna get it wrong, but let's see.
Let's look it
Princess
up.
Bride, Stand by Me. What else is on that? Help me out
When
here.
Harry
We
Met
can look at this up.
Sally,
Yep.
Spinal Tap, which just dropped again, which is crazy. I wonder. We'll get the story, but he was murdered by his son, who was famously addicted to drugs and got out of it and has been sober since he was 19. But I'm just gonna read it in order: Spinal Tap, Stand by Me, Princess Bride, Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, North, The American President, Ghosts of Mississippi, dude, Bucket List. And then it kind of LBJ, he kind of fades, but in terms of filmmaking, it doesn't get better than that, does it?
If we're talking about the American masters, right? It's like him, like Scorsese, whatever, like 5, 6 in a row, just bangers.
And
Tarantino.
I mean, yes. Well, All in the Family was one of the best shows, artworks ever, right? And he was like the main foil for that. Racist, older generation, lovable main character, and his son, progressive, wants new things, fighting, but loving his family. Amazing premise, heartbreaking show. And he was a main character in it.
I think Princess Bride, maybe the most elite of like childhood movies, because it was
too meta? Is it, when you look back at it, is it too meta?
I watched it recently, like with my nephew who had never seen it, and he enjoyed it, and I was like, maybe he didn't like it as much as we did, just contextually. It's so old at this point.
Sure.
I just like maybe the way that people who are that young consume things, and it just seems different and it seems old in the way that if I put on a something that was from the 50s, like, I see it, eh? Hey, it's a dirty rat, eh? Like maybe it just sonically sounds different and old and weird. I don't know.
You put on America's Most Wanted by Ice Cube, and the trends are different. We've changed.
Yeah, the beats are too fast. This sounds odd.
The thoughts
why is it 115 BPM?
Yeah. Oh, Helm's good. But I saw that Rob Reiner news came out, and he'd been outspoken politically on social media, sparred with people, did not apologize, was like, I'm not leaving, I'm talking. And when he died, people rejoiced a lot in his death for that reason. And I was thinking about like life on the internet and death on the internet. I had a friend who recently passed away who chronicled his cancer every day with many words, many visitors, many photos. He's like, today I'm not doing well. He said goodbye like twice before we got the final, like he didn't make it. Help me out here.
I mean, I don't know if there's a right way to do it.
Yeah.
We lost our buddy Billy, and he was the opposite. He was very personal about it. He didn't share much, and you had to find out through other people and kind of stay abreast of his condition via the like friend grapevine.
Right.
And like ultimately it's your life. Like if you want to share your experience and leaving the mortal coil with the world, or don't, who are we to say?
Yeah. And I'm back. I'm podcasting again, and it is like how you exist digitally sometimes I think betrays how you lived in life, and it's your choice, right? Rob Reiner had a choice, and I think he was older, and his inevitable death, one way or another, was going to get this response. Same with Joe Biden, same with Donald Trump. Like, they know. Donald Trump talks about this. He's like, I don't think I'm going to heaven. And I'm like, you're not going to social media heaven, that's for sure. I don't know what heaven is, so I can't talk to that, but you're surely not going to social media heaven. And it's interesting to see someone like Rob Reiner die, who's such an accomplished person, who had like a loving wife and a good brain and active, being reduced to takes about Donald fucking Trump. I'm like, this guy made The Princess Bride. Like, holy shit. His thoughts about Donald Trump or Paul Dano do not matter here, but maybe we cannot separate the art from the artist's life and the artist's death.
Yeah, I was at the after party for an award show. This was fairly recently. And Stellan Skarsgård was there. And this is a guy, of course, Stellan, the OG.
Yeah.
And he was there because of his movie Sentimental Value, which I heard is fantastic. I haven't seen it yet.
I'm a fan.
Critical raves.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has accomplished, so many different things and has this enormous family who is also successful. And there was some conversation, and it was me and another guy. And this guy kept bringing up the afterlife. I'm not sure exactly why. He was talking more about legacy than heaven or hell. He's like, but afterlife. I'm like, you're just being confusing by saying it that way. You just keep saying afterlife, but you're not talking about the afterlife. And Stellan listens to us for a second, and then it's just like, yeah, fuck all that shit, and just like walks off. He's like, I don't believe in any of it.
Right. Which is fair. I mean, I wouldn't say that's an emotionally intelligent way to deal with that, but like emotional period, which is great. I love to see people act on that. But like, right. So you told me that story, and that paints the picture of this very accomplished man to me. I'm like, oh, maybe he's not emotionally intelligent. Of course he is. But that singular kind of snippet, and to go back to my friend who passed away, he had gained so many followers and so many new friends through documenting his death. And he was like, I'm not going to make it very long, but nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I've reconnected with everybody. I'll have more to say tomorrow, I hope. And I'm like, yo, that's a crazy way to do it. I don't know how I would, gratefully, but like, that is a choice. And I think he had made himself happy when he could. And
I think that's what matters.
Maybe, right? Like, I do too, to soften. So this is the conflict I have. I certainly miss my friend, but the conflict is like, what do I want? Selfishly. Do I want to go out in a room like, I think it was Fellini, like with a room full of the characters in my life? Like, do I want the ghost of Frank Ntilikina to be by my deathbed? Kind of, right? I want all the things I think about surrounding me. But then, like, I want to be the writer of Pluribus and being like, there's no true journey if I'm not alone.
Well, also, speaking about your friend's experience, and this is something that was not available in the same way, for all of humanity. So it's novel. And in the same way that we don't know how phones are going to affect our brains or attention spans, or future generations are going to be born with their hand morphed into a claw for using cell phones. I don't know. We just don't know, because 20 years ago, maybe you could have had a WordPress. You could have live journaled it. You go back 10 years before that, you would have been writing it in a diary and handing it off to somebody. Like, by the way, my diary's over there. And someone's like, wow, that's really important. I'll just put this in this drawer forever.
Frida Kahlo, right? Like, furiously painting on her deathbed, or on the bed where she feel like she was trapped in. Incredible stuff, incredible art. And a part of me is just like, so old fashioned that I'm like, don't do it digitally, do it physically. Make a painting, write words, something, because digital stuff can be manipulated in a way that I just don't think that I won't recognize. So I've been doing my due diligence and taking tours of schools to put my young child in, perhaps in the future. And during all the question and answer periods, someone always asks, how do you guys deal with screens and how do you guys deal with technology? And I don't like 90% of the answers. The one answer I did enjoy was the person was like, we don't know. We don't know what effect this has on kids. We don't know what will work best. And I was like, right, because it would be foolish to think that us adults would understand the world in 20 years. And a lot of the people answering that question would be like, no screens, or like, we were prepared to teach them the theories that they will take into new technologies. And I was like, bullshit. We just won't know. There will be a change that we cannot anticipate, like Luka Doncic going to the Lakers, that will alter our reality. And to say that we can predict that is like just pure hubris.
And I mean, not to use Black Mirror as, some
I like that
cliched.
show. Come on.
No, I'm not knocking the show, whatever. But just
Yeah.
as a trope for dystopia, quote unquote, of like technology run amok.
Right.
It is very obvious, though, that someone could take the things that your friend said and wrote, or even Perfect Podcast, for example, and say, well,
Whoa.
you don't have to perish. You can exist, and we'll use these hundreds and hundreds of perfect podcasts and train a model on it, and then it can be personalized, and you can endure. In fact, you can just put out podcasts for every person. They just sort of plug their interest in. We'll figure out what you may have said about that. And there'll be some jokes about gruel, and basically it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. The Holocaust Museum, I believe, is creating an AI model where you can sit and talk to survivors, but it's just generated based off of AI information. So it will simulate someone being like, well, this is what happened. This is how I felt. This is where my family's from. And it would converse with the visitor like an actual person, which is really scary, but more awesome than anything. It could go south so fast, and it's hard to blame. Like if a computer generated Quentin Tarantino said Paul Dano was a bad actor, you'd be like, "Fuck this technology." But if he says it, you'd be like, "Fuck this person." It's kind of a different thing, right? It's like I used to think the hacienda DJing was like a celebration of the medium, but it kind of is a destruction of another one.
Well, it's also this idea that you are an artist and you cared about your craft and you left your legacy. And then some schmuck in your family 40 years from now can sell that off. And like, okay, yeah, Fred Astaire, we'll animate him selling vacuum cleaners. Why not?
Dude, Lauder from Estee Lauder was one of the great art collectors of the century. He pushed art forward by collecting, by being a patron, and he passed away, I believe, last year. In 3 months, his whole collection up for auction, Sotheby's. And I'm like, fuck? This is how he's gonna go out? I mean, there's a lot of money there, but like, it's hard not to be cynical, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I guess the only, silver lining is that when you're dead, you sure won't care.
As far as we know, I am not ready to say that. I am not ready to say that.
maybe you'll care more.
Maybe the AI version of me would be pissed as hell, bro.
I would never.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not religious, but I am not ready to say I know how I would feel when I'm dead. I think I would know, but I'm not certain. But yeah, a lot of it has to do, we're dealing with like estate tax bullshit in New York and in general, and the idea of inheritance and those ideas. And like a lot of talk, I hate talking about kid stuff, but some parents are like, why do you care about your kids going to a good school? Like they're going to be taught at home through parenting, and like maybe you didn't go to a good school, so like maybe they'll toughen up. And I'm like, oh, this is a pod worthy thing. I saw on Twitter, it's kind of evergreen, someone being like, to all you parents out there, give me one reason that isn't selfish as to why you had kids. And I always think like the answer is always simple, but I don't think anyone ever says it. It's like, if you believe that human beings are good and humanity is good at heart, and you don't think it's perfect right now, you could think that you're obligated to convince the future to be better. And in order to do that, you're not going to live forever. So you have to have a certain faith to go through with it. And I don't think that is necessarily selfish. It could be. It makes me feel good about it. But to me, that's the answer.
Well, I mean, it also ascribes a level of consciousness, which is, inherently part of humanity, and maybe not in the natural world of animals, but it also might separate us too much. Like, went raw dog.
Yeah, yo, I forgot to put that Jimmy on, son.
It's like, I don't know, like, all creatures are reproducing, and they may not have the cognitive sense that they're doing it to further their species in a Darwinian sense. It may just be two bears in the woods.
Right. But what separates us from bears?
Getting it on.
Two grizzlies getting it on. Kevin Love. But
I agree that we are separate in our perception of morality and the furthering of the species, but we're not entirely different.
I mean, we fight. We say stuff that like we don't actually like think about. I don't think Tarantino thinks about everything. He's a genius. But I do think the question is a good question. That evergreen question is good. It's like, as a person without a child, why the hell would you have kids? And I'm like, right. This is why we're not bears.
For sure. I only mean that there is a biological imperative at play somewhere. Yeah. And clearly it's cultural, societal, how much this is pushed upon the individual. Like, what's your responsibility to have kids? If you go to Southside Williamsburg, it's like, well, you gotta have 5 kids, 6 kids. We all have minivans. If you go to other communities, it's like, no, we're averaging like 0.5.
Yeah.
I mean, those things vary. But I just mean the like instinct to reproduce the species. I don't know. I'm just thinking about watching Children of Men recently, because it just dropped.
A very watchable movie.
Yeah, and it's also on Criterion with like Julianne Moore, who's the GOAT.
The CGI ping pong balls, ridiculous scene. I'm like, use a real ping pong ball, you charlatans. When they pop the ping pong ball, it's weird. But
master your craft.
Yeah, and not to be cold about it. It's like, if we end up like that movie, I want to see it play out. Like, I don't necessarily love simulation, but we got to see this thing through, right? Like, we can't all stop Pluribus. Pluribus becoming a better show as we talk. I'm like, there's a lot going on in that show. But I want to give Shea Gilgeous-Alexander 6 MVPs, 6 championships right now. I've never seen a team that good with that trajectory ever. And I lived through the Bulls. I want to see it happen. We just can't say.
Their reign, fortunately, is over. They are
now is over.
Looking from a distance, maybe upwards towards the Spurs and the Knicks in the Emirates Cup Championship. One day, OKC, that may be your cup, but it is not today.
It's the Yabu Wemby fight-off, the French connection. But you know what I mean? If we didn't go through with things, we'd just be like, the Thunder just win this wonderful Abu Dhabi championship. But like the Emirates Cup, just give it to them. Why play the games? I'm like, this is why we play the games. That Spurs Thunder game was fucking fire, man. I had so much fun watching it, and I was so mad at Wade. I don't like Dwayne Wade at all. I love Stan Van Gundy as a broadcaster, but they were kind of aghast too. They were like, dude, this is incredible. We've never seen basketball this good in our lives. Like, let's hope this game never ends.
Well, there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, specifically this game, but also these two teams. And, earlier in the day before that game, I was like, you know what? We just have to trust in Wemby. This was not predictive. It was self-defense. We have no choice here.
Like
but
on
to
a
say, no, to
like
say we have to believe in Wemby. We have to believe that Wemby can be the one to take out this OKC team. The way that
OKC lost that more than Wemby beat them, but yeah, maybe. Yo,
I'm not even saying it's true. I'm saying by necessity.
I hear you. You
just have to say the Spurs, it's Wemby. He's the one who's going to take these guys down.
I tweeted as I was watching, like, as the Thunder went out to an early lead as Wemby was on the bench because he's on a minutes restriction. And, I was projecting my feelings onto him, but there was a timeout and he got up. And I felt like his look was like, guys, we have a lot going on here, but there's so much work to do to beat this team. The Thunder are fucking good, guys. And, Dylan Harper's right by him, a number 2 overall pick from a few months ago. Like, the reigning rookie of the year. And Wemby was looking around and be like, I don't know if we got enough, man. And even though they beat them in that small sample size, the Thunder will probably be favorites against them moving forward every time they match up.
I'm sure. I mean, the Thunder are an interesting team because they don't have the stigma of being a super team that was amassed either by a GM via trade, even though it sort of was, but or by the machinations of feckless players who are willing to unite against the Jordan-esque rules to be a champion. And we talked a lot about this because of the onerous salary cap and because it's trickier to sign or acquire players, that OKC is going to be very difficult to beat unless you are organically constructed. Maybe you can make one big move.
Yeah.
Spurs do fall into that category, as you said, because you have Wemby, you have Castle, you have Harper. That's a great collection of talent that you've gotten yourself to the draft. They have some other future picks. Champagny, is Brooklyn's own, but he is also a guy that they scooped up early on in his career. The Sixers, I believe, waived him prior to that.
Vassell is an NBA player.
But their stumbling block might be Fox. That may not have been the right move. Giannis might be the move in theory, or someone else, but Fox may not be the one because Harper looks really good.
And I think Fox is a valuable commodity and tradable. He was a market kind of value at the time. He was available, so they took him. Players like him don't become available that much. But
he's very good. I'm not
yeah.
I'm not a huge Fox fan, but I think he's good.
Yeah, I mean he won a bunch of games when Wemby was out. But the trajectory of a player like SGA is different. Like, I'm delighted by this Thunder thing because a lot of chatter I hear are people saying like, this is fraudulent. He's not an ethical player, and we need to break up this super team because it doesn't qualify as a deserved product. And I'm like, these are the same people who claim 6 for 6 with the Bulls all the time. In my lifetime, I've never seen the potential of a team to rival what Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant and Tony Kukoc did and Dennis Rodman, but this would be it. Let them play it out. Have those basketball championship children and let's see what they become. Because what are we doing if we're not trying to challenge our perceptions of Michael Jordan?
Some people might say, wait, Cookies Hoops, didn't you just call for the dissolution of OKC 2 weeks ago on this very pod, I'd say, well, that was a personalized pod, so that's what you wanted.
Right. That was the artificially intelligent version of me. This is the ethically intelligent version of me.
Also, I think Wemby said something about ethical basketball.
He did.
You're welcome, Wemby.
You're welcome, French guy. That's right. Playing chess.
Yeah, translate this.
Yeah. But
Ethical basketball.
Not to bemoan the Thunder, but I'm astonished at how well this team build is going for them. As we're seeing like Porzingis with this mysterious illness again, like it falls apart so quickly. It's like I know we weren't going to talk about Porzingis, but man, I hope he gets better. Like I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, they said he's out for I think 2 weeks right now.
It's an arbitrary length of time because he has this illness that they cannot diagnose. Like, what is it? Are you on mute? You're on mute.
Yeah, it's the same tropical malaria that cost Boston our title run, perhaps last year.
I mean, in terms of team building, it's crazy. We believed in the Celtics. Only
our Celtics.
Right. But like if you have the wings, and not to be like catering to myself here, but if we talk about the Knicks and what they should do and everything, when you add Porzingis and Drew Holiday, that's how you do it. When you have Casey Wallace and Isaiah Hartenstein with a bunch of wings, like this is how you win a championship.
But this is what I mean about OKC, is that they are beatable in a way that
everything beatable. Yes.
I did not think the Golden State team with Kevin Durant was beatable, but the Rockets could have done it.
Yeah.
They could have done it. They missed a million threes. Chris Paul got hurt. They could have done it. That team was the best team ever assembled, in my opinion. And they won a couple titles. Then KD got hurt and Clay got hurt and KD left. That team did not strike me as being beatable at all, but it could have happened.
It goes both ways, right? Like we have results. I think we should weigh results really heavily, but there's an asterisk with the Lakers and Celtics, right? Like we saw this bracket with the Celtics and they're like, they hit it. They hit a river. Everyone's hurt. They have this, right? It's like, but they won it all. I'm like, yeah, you have to win the games that you play, but like, yeah, it's different. Like Golden State Warriors, it was, for example, Wemby beats the Thunder, and everyone's like, I see the headlines the next day being like, should the Spurs be taken seriously? I'm like, of course they should, but that was a coin flip. And if you call the correct foul at the end with Caruso and the Thunder pull it out, the narrative is like, they are true champions. They can win easily and they can win hard. And I'm like,
but they have no Emirates Cup hardware.
The Knicks, baby. It's just like ho-hum. The Knicks in the finals. Who's going to be finals MVP? Jalen Brunson. Let's go. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's time for you to talk your shit, Andrew. The Emirates Cup finals, New York Knicks.
They say it's more important than the Larry O'Brien trophy. This is the hardest championship to win because it's one and done. There's so much randomness. This is the gambler's paradise because it's such a coin flip. And the Knicks are in the finals. What a strong emotional team, buddy.
So wait, the Emirates, so who did they beat? They beat, Orlando and someone else, right? Or do they only have to beat Orlando?
Yo, we got roasted for leaving Paolo Banchero off our top 20 list. He's not a top 20 player. Shout out to Paolo Banchero, who I like. But like,
they beat the Raptors, and then their road to the Emirates
details,
Cup.
Just details.
Toronto,
yeah, come on,
man. Toronto's fine. They're fine. You play who's there.
They were on a losing streak. Come on, we don't care about Toronto.
I'm saying Orlando's pretty good. Orlando's pretty good.
Orlando was good. Desmond Bain kind of arriving as a villain is pretty great because he was kind of muted, sort of like his arms in Memphis.
Or
But
my
bright
microphone moments ago.
yes, exactly. But in the bright lights of Orlando, that big market, like he is a great villain. I wish he owned it more though, because he kind of concedes. He's just like, this is a good rivalry. Isn't this fun, guys? I'm like, no, shush. Talk poorly of them. The Knicks are rife for criticism as Carl Anthony Towns puts on a hard hat and like the construction gear. Like, that's your shit, man.
Bane spiking the ball off of OG was pretty great.
That was some Roger Clemens weird, like, he wasn't present. But OG's response, emotional king, was like, we good, bro? Like, what was
Funny.
that? I'm
Well,
like, it's soft, but let's
so
go.
there was a clip that went viral maybe 2 years ago, and I want to say it was a European game or a college game. I forget what it was, but I would presume that every player saw it. Just how it works. Every NBA player saw this clip if they're on Instagram, or he was showed it to him, whatever. And a guy blocks a shot, holds the ball, and then basically lightly tosses it to the guy who he just swatted, who's out of bounds.
This is the Pippen Ewing, right?
Except for the fact that he had control of the ball and could have gone down the other way to do a fast break, but literally just goes like, bink, and tosses it to the guy. And everyone's like, that's funny. He really owned him. Like, he swatted his shit, and then he's like, and it's out on you. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Bane saw that clip and was like, yeah, but you could also just like spike the ball off their head.
Yo, he's a maximalist, man. It's cool as hell. OG Anunoby, more important and better than I ever imagined. The Knicks are for real contenders with that guy. It should not be underrated how important that trade was. That sets this whole run in motion. I know, Brunson is awesome. He's no MVP, but he's awesome. OG fucking Anunoby, man.
He's been great.
Like,
I also want to say, because no one ever talks about him, because no one cares about
your
Toronto,
guy?
is that IQ has actually been very good this year.
Oh,
He's playing really well. I mean, I'm a fan. I think that trade was a win for both. I know the RJ Barrett part of it, very iffy, but Quick has been very good this year. Sort of a forgotten man last season due to injury. He's good.
He didn't have a chance at the revenge game in the Emirates Cup because he was important to them. He is important to them, but he reminds me of like Derek Queen or Joe Dumars. The Knicks drafted him. He's good. He's secretly great. Derek Queen, better than many people like myself thought he would be, but you can't really work with that. And the Knicks, it was a tax to include him in that trade because they weren't going to re-sign him. They have too many guards. You'd rather have Brunson. And Derek Queen, man, hard to build a team around.
We'll see. I don't know what the Pelicans are up to.
I know. We don't want to talk about the Joe Dumars, your boy. Can we talk about Isaiah?
Just going back to the Knicks here. So the Knicks have figured out, I guess it's called the Mike Brown offense or whatever. Like, they have the third rated offense in the NBA. Defense has been pretty good. It's 11th right now. Net rating 4th overall. They're still playing at a slow pace. How are you feeling? Like you said, legit contender. OG Bridges having a great year. Are the Knicks for real, Andrew?
I'm delighted. Of course, they're for real. We're going to be Emirates Finals participants, but there has to be a move. I think you have to say aggressive. Backup center, point guard, defensive point guard who has size. Chris Dunn makes like $9 million. That's a little too much. But like someone like Chris Dunn would be perfect. I think Ben Simmons for free. Something like that. And like center wise, I'm just looking for like a basic body because all these Knicks fans are like, you bring Dante back for Mitchell Robinson. I'm like, dude, there's no bigs on this team. You have to add size, not chemistry. This run, and like I was going through this personal journey on Twitter about the Knicks, and I was like, I don't think they're going to win a championship with this window. I don't think Brunson's going to win one because SGA stands in the way, or just like the Rockets. There's really good teams out there. But do the Knicks know this as well? And are they like, you know what? We'll get Dante back. You guys will be delighted. I wonder how many Knicks fans in their hearts think John Starks won a championship. I think quite more than I think.
I mean, I'm of the mind that you try to be good enough to win a title for a while and then hope you get lucky, unless you are OKC, where you have dominant talent. If you're like, well, I don't really see a route to us having the most talent in the league. Like, okay, sure, maybe in theory, if we could add Giannis and keep Cat and keep Brunson, okay, in some magical world where we're able to do that, we could have enough talent to just win off the strength of, you know why we won a title? Because we were supposed to. Otherwise, you're in this group of the top 7 teams in the league. You just try to do that for a decade. And I mean, look at the Bucks. That's what they did. They just stayed good enough for a while that one year happened and KD's toe went on the line, and then we're playing the Phoenix. We're playing the Phoenix Suns in the finals. The Suns.
Yeah. I mean, the Celtics, right? It's like, Halliburton's hurt, Brunson's hurt. Like, we're good. I mean, imagine going into the playoffs if you're Wemby and the Knicks healthy, and then all of a sudden SGA is like, "Yo, my calf feels funny." You're like, "This is what we've been waiting for, right? This is why we kept this team together."
I mean, this is what Golden State did. They had their dynasty, and they're like, you know what? Let's not pull up the tent stakes just yet. We still got Curry. We want him to be here forever. So as long as he's here, we'll try to be competitive because we can be. He's that good. And if he's healthy, we can maybe win a title.
Man, all this talk about how good a basketball team is, are they going to win or not? What I'm really concerned with, like, who's the vibe MVP? Most vibey player, right? Like, what, as we're awaiting for the next superstar crop of players to emerge after the aging out of LeBron and Chris Paul, like, they shouldn't act or sound like the previous generation superstars. But what are we looking at? Like, who has the most likable, most marketable voice out there?
Right. That's a tricky one because as we talked about the NBA potentially entering the dark ages in terms of marketability with LeBron, KD, Curry on the tail end of their respective careers, the new crop hasn't seized the imagination of the public in the same way that these players that you can say with one name, you know, it's like Larry, Wilt.
Wow.
AI.
Emmanuel. Right. Frank.
Like Emmanuel Mudiay, exactly.
Right. I mean, all this talk about the marketability and the viewership of the NBA, I always, on one hand, I'm like, hey, if it's not for you, I don't care. They're always going to play basketball. I'm down. Go read a book. Go read Hillbilly Elegy again. I'll be watching my NBA games, but I wonder because the voices that were manufactured, like John Morant, got hurt, kind of tailed off. Those sneakers are so sick. Like, oh, it's all there for him. He's got the great name. He's got the great look. But like, he's not the one. And Wemby has emerged, I think, and we saw this during the Emirates Cup game, that like they're really marketing him to be a thoughtful. They had like his interview with Taylor Rooks, black and white, cool angles, thoughtful dude, chess player, Shaolin monk. Like it's in play right now. And on one hand, I feel like he's perfect because not only is he thoughtful, he's a bit unpredictable in a good way with what he'll say, but he's also old fashioned when he talks about like work and Bible adjacent ideas, like being a good ethical basketball player. Stay tuned for Nas's pregame performance in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Wemby, his connections to Mao, to the Shaolin Temple, it's kind of like that meme. It's not that one day you're going to look in the mirror and realize that you're Chinese. It's that you're going to look in the mirror and realize that you were always Chinese.
It's that Mapo mirror again, buddy. Yeah, it's true. Hey, if we survive another 40 generations, we're all going to be Chinese. And Wemby knows this, and he's cashing in 2025.
He gets it. He's the new Ice Cube.
That's right. Is Wemby from the future? Maybe he already knows everybody's Chinese. But I do find him to be lacking in a way that feels time appropriate in 2025, 26. In that Giannis is also like not American of origin and thinks that what we want from our superstar athletes is like the NFL quarterback, Joe Namath, not Joe Namath, my bad, Joe Montana, and Michael Jordan. You say a few poignant things with a few words, and you appeal to a kind of religion that we've written ourselves that is unspoken but palpable. Um, as opposed to John Morant or Shea Gilgeous Alexander. I always tongue tie that word, that name, or even Brunson and Hart, who are kind of light on their feet, especially as nepo babies. Wemby is an outsider. He is the man on the horse riding into town.
There's always going to be the issue with Wemby of his supernatural wingspan, his height, his ability to do things on the court that are preposterous for normal sized people, but especially normal sized people who love basketball. And that's why big guys don't sell shoes necessarily. But I do think that Wemby is a little different than we initially thought. I know it's a subtle difference, but he came in and was very much like, try hard. I'm surprised these other players don't take this as seriously as me. I'm just here to win. And it was very, it felt like a youthful version of what he thought a professional athlete was supposed to look like in the contours of Kobe or Jordan or even LeBron. But I think he's had a subtle shift, and maybe it's the fact that he's Chinese now.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a businessman. He's a Chinese restaurant owner businessman. And like I do think like the evolution of a celebrity personality is partially created, but partially discovered, or it kind of lands on you. And I don't think NBA superstars should talk like the older NBA superstars. Um, whether that be self-preservation of individuality or whatever. But Wemby is so interesting, right? Because I think he's going to encounter the criticism, like you said, of being physically special. And it's just like, well, when he dunks on somebody or gets a hard foul and flexes, it doesn't really have the same energy as a smaller player doing it. Smaller, quote unquote, like a 6'5" player, right? So when he is demonstrative about his morality and his toughness, it hits different. And he's got to account for that. When he sits down to play chess in Washington Square Park, it is surreal because he does not look like a cerebral person. Clearly, he is. But the way he plays will never show that because he's so physically unique.
Well, right. That was, I think, our first objection to him kind of presenting his rise to the NBA as a prospect, as the top pick, as a triumph of discipline. Not saying he didn't sacrifice for this, not saying he doesn't have the sweat equity. It's just tougher to accept when that guy is 7'5" than from Tyrese Maxey, who's out there getting 1% better every day. It's like, right, you are 6'2". You must be an absolute psychopath. Wemby, well, you were a giant from the beginning. And it's harder for me to understand that it took grinding it out in the gym to get here. Because look how tall you are, man. You don't have to jump.
If I was that tall, I definitely wouldn't be Bol Bol, but he's a superstar in the fit world. So maybe I would want to be Bol Bol. But like advantages are really tough to align with like the 10 commandments, right? Because we want everything to feel like a choice. It's like Michael Jordan was great because he chose to be great. Kobe Bryant put in those hours. I'm like, and he had an advantage that Wemby has. Wemby is certainly not Bol Bol. One of the great tragedies of our basketball lives would be the fact that Manute Bol's son doesn't really like basketball because, damn, he looks like a fascinating player. Wemby does not suffer from that, but he's contextually a different thing. And if we can't put him into a container, his words as a celebrity are going to be nuanced in a way that won't serve him well, I think. He's not American. He is not recognizable as a person like Anthony Edwards is recognizable as Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant was recognizable as Michael Jordan. It is going to be hard to speak of him, even in terms of Giannis, who also never really got to the top tier of celebrity.
Well, Giannis is an interesting example because he sort of shifted a little bit how he presented himself. There was like maybe in his first or second year when he emerged as an actual star, he was doing this sort of Kobe Westbrook thing where he was glowering a lot and scowling, and he got ejected from their playoff loss to the Bulls by like shouldering someone on the Bulls. I don't even know who it was, Kirk Heinrich or some shit. I don't know, whatever. Some guy just, shouldering him out of bounds and being ejected. And he was clearly trying a persona. It was a Kobe Westbrookian, hyper intense, tough guy persona that he realized he could play exactly the same way, but by being kind of the goofy guy off screen. But he's still in the, I just work so hard, I'm a simple guy. Not interesting enough. It's just not quite interesting enough. And that's why I am a bit more bullish, no Heinrichian, adjacency here. I'm bullish on Wemby being a little bit weird, a little bit smart, and kind of cool because he isn't that referential that I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like Tyrese Halliburton is too referential. He's too in his own head with this shit. He understands he wants to dress a certain way. He wants to do this celebration. He is a brilliant, phenomenal basketball player, but like there's too much of an echo chamber there. Wemby, when he goes out there and says, yeah, I didn't really get into this to stack millions. I saw you in front of that Mao poster. I believe you.
I mean, he's following the blueprint of Kendrick, right? To success. Kendrick, I think, has a cap on his celebrity because he does not adapt the things that Taylor Swift or Chalamet do. Chalamet's tactics are Sally Field. It's like, my bad. That's more Taylor Swift. Chalamet's tactic is, I want to be great. I'm here to be great. Why else would I be here? I think Kendrick is like, but I'm your moral core. I'm your ethical core. So all these other celebrities, rappers, are interested in things that are not truth. I'm here to provide you with the light. And that's why I always mention religion. I think what Kendrick does is more religious than anything. And I think that's, as a interloper to American culture, I think that's the easiest way to enter because that fulfills the most boxes, that checks the most boxes with fans. To be able to pull off Nepo Baby with a sense of humor and dryness like Brunson, it's a high degree of difficulty.
It'll be interesting to see if Wemby eventually does stand for something because ultimately, in my opinion, where Kendrick runs afoul here is that it was hollow. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
That all he needed to do was be the protector of hip hop culture, the guy who was going to defend it from Canadian invaders and pop artists, and he was smart and cared about this as a craft. Ultimately, he says nothing. He is just a protector of the craft. Maybe that's what Wemby will end up being. This that is a concept, that he stands for something about greatness and morality and virtue and like what being a basketball player is really like. And I think he showed signs of that kind of, how do you say it, but that kind of branding, I guess, early on. But I'm hopeful that we'll see him take a stand. I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's just, wheeling out the guillotine for CJ McCollum. I don't know.
I mean, I think he is sabotaged by his own youth sometimes. So if you want to talk about branding, LeBron James enters the sneaker field with the king, and the logos are crowns, and they have serifs, or they look royal. They remind us of the past. And Wemby comes through and it's like, hey, Wemby, what do you think of this alien head logo? Like, I love it. I'm the alien. And I'm like, ooh, you might or may not be stuck with that, in the same way like Jamie Foxx decides to be a serious actor. It's like, what's your name? It's like Jamie Foxx with multiple X's, because I was the resistance, but now I'm the establishment. So Wemby may be thinking in terms of his youthful self right now, his true self, which is like, I am the antithesis to all things boring. I am unique. I'm here to reign as your new entertainer. But it might do him a disservice if he's talking about like traditional ideas.
However, maybe this is the French girl's guide to fashion. Maybe this is the French girl's guide to throwing a picnic, or the French girl's guide to interior decorating your living room. Maybe
Draw
he
me
just
like one of
has,
your French logos.
maybe he just has that je ne sais quoi.
I mean, maybe he made the escargot Esquire, but like, I think he is a tertiary superstar in the NBA, given his injury history, given his physicality, like we talked about, and given his market. I think the ceiling for him, oddly, is lower than someone like Shea Gilgeous Alexander, who there's chatter of being like akin to Michael Jordan. Like, his stats are alarmingly good. His game is amazing, even though people claim they hate foul grifting. He's doing things and the refs are calling them. And he's handsome. And we had Jason Aceto on this pod talking about shooting him for the cover of Gentleman's Quarterly. I think there's potential for him that's higher than Wemby. I don't think Cooper Flagg, Julius Randle with hops is the one. I don't think Con Knipple is the one. There's a few rookies next year that are hard to package in terms of like how complicated their names are. Luka Doncic is not the one. Like, it's an open field.
I'm sure he would like to tell the story better. But our buddy Matt, who made the theme song for our tournament by playing a beautiful saxophone.
Oh, Airly Weapons Matt McCauley, yes, from Eilers Angels. McCauley. Rings a bell.
You might know him. Yeah, he said in growing up in the Boston area that I think AJ Debancia's family lived like upstairs from him or something. It was a very,
I did not know that.
He's like, yeah, there was this like family of, an immigrant family who lived upstairs, and it was his parents.
Really? That's crazy. Because his parents must be kind of Matt's age, right? So they grew up as he was a child.
I believe that was the telling of this, yeah.
I mean, when the Celtics got off to a slow start, when people didn't believe like we believed, we knew it was going to end up well for them. But they were like, oh, he's destined to be in green and white. Not so fast. Now they're like, do we have the moral championship? Do we have the coach of the year, sixth man of the year, most improved player of the year, all on the same team?
No one believed in these Celtics they're all playing with a chip on their shoulder. They are really inspiring as
Mhm.
a scrappy band of overachievers. I'm like, wait, did you not read the Cookies Hoops 2026 NBA preview? It clearly says in there, don't believe anyone who says that this is a bunch of overachievers. They're lying to you. This is a 50-win team. They're currently on pace for 50 wins, as predicted.
I mean, there's only two polarities with fandom and writing about sports. Is like the little engine that could and too big to fail. Those are the only two things, right? So if you wanted to write a thoughtful piece about the Thunder, you'd be like, are they too big to fail, or is Oklahoma City as a city the little engine that could? Just pick one, because everything else is too complex. And uh, we knew what would happen with Boston, and we know what's going to play out with like marketing or packaging a superstar in the NBA. Like Wemby is not the little engine, but he's not too big to fail. We can't use him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, is it because these guys are still very young? I mean, obviously, we know that with Wemby,
We
but I mean, Luka's only
You know a star
26.
when you see it. You know a star when
I'm
you
just,
see it. Like Chalamet was on his way. He he arrived, and you're like, he's the one.
I guess what I'm saying is we're looking towards Cooper Flag instead of saying, no, this is about Luka, and this is about Wemby, and this is about SGA.
You think Lucas?
Embiid's knees are gone. Jokic is in his early 30s and feels like he might just abandon the NBA whenever.
Jokic is not marketable. You're not going to make money on Jokic's
No,
shoes. No, he might be the greatest player of the century.
he was on Nike and they weren't putting things out. Now he's on, I believe, a Chinese sneaker brand because everyone is Chinese, and
All
we
sneaker
don't even
brands will end up
know
being Chinese.
we don't even know what brand it is. Is it Li Ning? I literally don't know what he's wearing, and he's the best player of the prior decade, and we don't know what sneakers he wears.
The Mapo Mamba. I mean, it is. We're not talking about who the best player is. We're talking about who fans want to spend money on. Two different things, right? And like, shout out to the Knicks. Dolan finally was like, "Oh, you guys don't want Amari Stoudemire. You guys want these Catholic guys." Like I get this story. These
Oh,
Catholic.
you're into Catholicism and
Mac
Philadelphia
Miller.
parochial universities. Okay, got it.
I mean, they're into Brunson being like the little engine that could. All these guys, the little engine that could. The reason
Well,
why
this
Cat's not
is
that popular is he's not that.
this is playing out in Philadelphia as we speak. People are
Yeah.
mad at Embiid, and I've covered this before. He got hurt playing for the team. This is how it works. Be nice to him. He's going to have a replacement knee and limp for the rest of his life
Cried because he
because
lost the game. That's amazing.
because he was out there playing for the Sixers. So give let it slide. It's fine. It's whatever. This is how it works.
Yeah.
But the little engine that could, Tyrese Maxey, the little tyrant running around there, playing more minutes than anyone in the league, chucking up the second most shots in the NBA. Actually,
No
maybe
one
the
believed
first
in
most.
Edgecombe. No one believed in Edgecombe. If people believed in him, they would have taken him number one, but they didn't. And he's just tugging that. He's a little tugboat that could in Philadelphia.
So, the phrase, who is this for? It's overused. Who is this for? Who is this even for? This
I
perfect
love that
podcast.
question. I love
Well,
that question, everybody.
it's personally for you because this is an AI,
Yeah.
an AI curated pod. I saw Bill Simmons talking about the All NBA guard after SGA. He says it should be Tyrese Maxey over Jalen Brunson, over Cade Cunningham, and over Donovan Mitchell. Who is this for?
And not to call back our 90s conversation, but there was a number. And Bill Simmons, who was a wonderful content creator with amazing writers, cool ideas, went against the grain, is kind of just Stephen A. light, right? In a subtle way. I would sell out too. The numbers that he kind of achieved, shout out to one of the GOATs. But he's gaslighting. and he's gaslighting he has bad thoughts about the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks, anybody who's in the way of that leprechaun gold. And he's playing possum a little bit. He doesn't believe this, but he wants to start the dialogue and so he could be the victor in the end, because we all know Tyrese Maxey, however awesome and wonderful he is not the second best guard after SGA.
No, I think Maxey's having a very good year, but a lot of his gaudy numbers are the product of him being on the court for like 85% of the Sixers' minutes. Nick Nurse is a terrorist, and he will he's playing 40 minutes a game. It makes no sense. He's barely putting Jared McCain on the court. For some reason, Kyle Lowry was out there yesterday. It's all a very bewildering spectacle.
You got to see the wagon. But you got to please the fans, man.
I'm just saying, the Maxey stuff, his numbers are inflated, which is fine. So what? He's having a great year. He's scoring efficiently, not hyper efficiently like a Donovan Mitchell or something like that, but efficiently. And he's putting up a lot of, 40-point games. He's averaging, I don't know, 32 a game.
He's awesome. He's been great. He's awesome. Yeah. But Cade Cunningham, no one on earth, Donovan Mitchell.
No one on earth thinks he's better than Cade Cunningham.
No. Cade Cunningham, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards. He's in the Brunson tier. He could be talked about. You can convince me, but Maxey and Brunson are together. They're out. They're like third tier. If the top tier only has a couple guys and the second tier has like 10 guys, they're right outside of that.
Okay, who says no?
Are you doing a trade?
We're doing it. We're talking. If we're talking Bill Simmons, we're doing the who says no. Brunson for Maxey. Who says no?
It depends on what narrative you want. I'll take either.
I think both. I think weirdly, both teams do, but whatever.
Yeah, I think, in a vacuum, both teams do in terms of value. I think Brunson being a born Knickerbocker is different. I don't think Brunson's ever going to get traded ever again. But in terms of like a basketball player thing, like Maxey's not as tall as I always think he is. I think he's 6'2", the same as Brunson. I rank Brunson's magic, his magical sorcery, in high regard. I think that is just a blessing to witness. But Maxey is fucking sick. So yeah, pick your poison.
Yeah, I would take Brunson because
it's the line
is, to me, a better passer, but also because he is much better at playing in space, and I think Maxey's bad at that. And just in a late game scenario, I'd rather have the guy who can have both feet in the lane, come up with his own shot, draw a foul, kick the ball out, than Maxey doing his like Wile E. Coyote roadrunner flyby, flinging the ball at the rim, with that being the only outcome. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. He's a good scorer. He can do it. I think Brunson gives you more outcomes, if that is a way of phrasing it.
It's funny that we're almost half a decade away from the debate of when the game slows down in the playoffs in regards to Ben Simmons and Philly. But when the game slows down in the playoffs, to your point, I like Brunson's wiggle. Maxey's awesome. You love him on the court, but Brunson has a wiggle in opportune situations that is the magic that I'm talking about.
What's funny is the idea of the game slowing down. It's almost more about, does the game slow down to the player, right?
I love it, Nick. Yeah.
One of the issues that Towns has, and I think Embiid has at times, and even maybe in Anthony Davis, just bigger players, because they aren't used to having that much pressure on them. They aren't used to making decisions. And this is what makes Jokic.
They gain an advantage of playing slow. Their size is an advantage.
You can't speed Jokic up, or it happens very, very rarely.
Because speed negates size. Right.
Cat, you can speed up. Embiid, you could speed up. Those guys get a little bit frantic. Randall sometimes would get sped up. It's like, the defense is a little bit closer than they're supposed to be. They're a little handsier than they are. Jason Tatum definitely gets sped up. We saw that happen against Miami. We saw it happen against Golden State. Oh, they're just scheming this different. They're hedging in different ways. Oh my God, they just keep slapping at my fucking hands. OKC, this Caruso guy is fouling me. I'm telling you, he's fouling me over here.
Shout out to Caruso playing awesome defense on Wemby.
Brunson doesn't get sped up.
Yeah.
Like, there are flaws to his game, his height, his lack of defense. He doesn't get sped up on offense. That's a really big deal when it matters.
That's that Nepo baby confidence, man. It's just like nothing bad's going to happen to me. Life's good. And I'm like, oh man, how does that feel? It's like, well, you can't speed me up because things just kind of are nice. We're just playing basketball over here. I'm like, damn, what does that feel like?
But it's also very true, because I remember, playing organized basketball for the first time, and it felt crazy. You're on the playground, you're playing with your friends, you're playing pickup, you're in practice. All of a sudden you get out there with refs and plays, and the defense is doing something instead of just wandering around and, scratching their ass. No, they're trying to trap me now. And there's a ref and he's looking at me and I'm like, ref, come on. Don't you see what these guys are doing?
Yeah.
The game is terrifying. And eventually you get past that. But I get it. I look at someone like Towns and late in games, and he's being swarmed by small defenders, and like, you can't play the same way.
He was just a Mac Miller, man. Like the Knicks went out into the Knicks content person was like, okay, who's your dream artist to see at the Sphere? James, your boss's venue. Carl, the Obamification of culture should not be underrated, because I was surprised to see some of these answers. Mac Miller, Morgan Whalen, like, what are we doing? Are we trying to, like, you probably didn't know I was gonna say this, but, and I'm like, this is an Obama top 10 list.
Tragedy, Gaddafi, blood type. Okay, all right, that makes sense. Like, that I get.
Lord Tariq, whatever. But like,
but not Lord Tariq and Peter Guns, just a Lord Tariq solo
just
cut.
Lord Tariq, yeah. Special guest. The Knicks, we always say, are the corporate entity of our New York subconscious. Them hunting for Giannis, Dante, Jose Alvarado, these are not good thoughts, but so New York. I love it. Let's get those Tims on that fitted. Let's do it.
The Knicks have telegraphed their moves so brazenly over the past few years that I just sort of, I'm like, okay, I guess they're getting Giannis and Dante.
Yeah.
They've done nothing surprising. Like, what if they got Mikal Bridges? Like, no, we're going to. Like, okay.
Yeah.
OG. Okay, they got OG.
I mean, Brunson. It's like they're going to sign Brunson. So much so that no other team kind of even gave it a shot.
At this point, I have no choice but to believe them.
This is what we're doing. I think I'm going to look back and think very fondly of this team. They're not going to win a championship, though. What would you rather win a championship with, like LeBron James as a Laker, or just like have a lovable team? Because I know a lot of Lakers fans are like, I don't really count that one. I'm like, you should count that one. That was the most difficult championship of all time.
You know what you should always count on?
The non-AI version of Jason Tatum is a top 3 player.
The personalized pod pizza.
Whoa. Look at you, alliteration fan over here.
It's not me, it's the listener. They desire that.
True.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.